Welcome to another episode of the APL Spotlight series, an offshoot of the APL show. We have only the most fantabulous guests back on this, where we do a deeper dive with them. Sometimes it's directly with the universe angels. Other times we just get into exotic topics and have fun. But either way, you're getting an amazing guest who's either going to be on the show in the future, has already been on the show, but we've just taken the step and had him on for a deeper dive. So today, coming to us from Nevada, SAN QING, Taoist teacher who's incredibly talented, intuitive, gifted, and loves helping others. He's been doing it a long time. Just a reminder, though, quickly, the show shifts to two, the main show, APL show, shifts to two shows a week in 2025. So instead of us being booked out to February of 2026, it's now August of 2026. So it's a ways out. You've got incredible guests the world over, like our guest today, with incredible insights meant to help you slow way down, get to hear, and experience more love, life, universe at your own pace. With that, San, welcome to the show. It's great to see you again.
Well, thank you for having me, brother. This is it's reunited and it feels so good. I feel it. I feel the bond. I feel the unity, and I feel the forever love that you transmit through your own realization. And that is the offering that you share, that I see every time I lay my eyes on whatever you transmit through this relationship. And the charge that you and I are getting right now, which is the aha knowing that we are in love with ourselves and each other and the universe. It's the now moment, brother.
I'd say no way, but it's really always. And your theway126.com is your website. Can you explain your background in sort of a short form? Because we're going to get into it a little bit later, but also
Yeah.
explain what is the way? Because I mean, Buddha once might have said, the way is not in the sky, it's not here, it's not language, it's not this, it's not that. I'm assuming your website is a little bit of a take off the way.
Well, yeah, elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. Yes, well, in definition, the Tao is your way. That's the path. That's in definition what that means within the Chinese culture. And if you to unravel the symbolism of that particular character within Taoism, that's what it means, the way. So, in essence, you're revealing your self mastery through a path of realization through the cultivational practices within the Taoist gnosis. And so you find that through the alchemical process. And when you master the currency that we call the electromagnetism of this material, then you activate and realize your immortality, and it surges within the subatomic particles of this human body we call the flesh and blood, your identity that looks back before you in the mirror. This is self-evidence and self-mastery that you can then commandeer the frequency that is the resonance, that is the currency of this space. So when you are focusing your attention intention, you materialize from light to wave to matter to particle, the very evidence of the primordial mother, the unification of all things within Taoism. We call it Wu Ji. And then you distort that with your attention intention, creating what we would consider the currency, energy. And that energy would then present itself in a vibratory frequential state that, if met with resonance through the cultivational practice, you can repeat it. And it doesn't become some transitory, fleeting moment of delusion that you are separated from your psyche. Instead of it being a mind, body, spirit unification, it presents itself that your attention intention is the creation of all things, which reveals within a Taoist path every thought, feeling, and emotion. You are the physical, energetic, and spiritual manifestation of divine word, will, light, love of the Tao. And that will show itself. So you'll have imperium over this frequency, which is this perfection. So when your attention intention is guided, it will create. That gnosis is the creation of all things. that visceral, kinesthetic, somatic charge that you and I are in union with, we are communing right now as this unified state. You're experiencing the physicality of that because this is your very register of knowing that this is true to you. And that truth will reside within the feeling. So that feeling is the said evidence. And the more you refine your flow and you create from that Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother, it will present itself as Wu Wei, which is what we call effortless action, effortless effort. And that is the serendipitous, synchronistic expression of the now moment. You are no place, no person, no thing. The now is all we have, but you must be able to replicate that. You must be able to cultivate that. That's why the alchemical process is so powerful within Taoism. And so that way is your self-realized mastery. On a small little detoured plug, you can read about it in my book, The Return, The Immortal Path of Self-Realization Through the Lens of Taoist Alchemy. Just a little saying, just putting it out there.
Getting into your background, Australia originally, can you touch upon that?
Yeah, I started my curiosity, which really is sort of the fundamental shift from a Taoist. It starts with inquiry, contemplation, curiosity. Curiosity, it nurtures hope. Hope reveals itself within a state of belief, and that belief then creates what we know to be true because it's an experience. We're experiencers, we're creators. That experiential moment is how you can identify, how you can repeat this very frequency, and of course affecting the state of humanity by raising that currency so that people return home to this basically the straight knowing of empathy. So from that, I nurtured my curiosity, being a latchkey kid as a young boy, raised by a radical feminist in the 70s. I had a realization, being around this very nourishing maternal state, this very incredible energy that I activated very quickly within my Taoist path, what we call yin eyes, that even though I may present myself as a very stoic, stout, yang energy, as we always remember, the way to walk is not the way. The name that is named is not the name. Tao is both named and nameless. And so this appearance is the very distraction from the very currency that I transmit and embody in that unified state, which is what we call the primordial mother. So as a child, I started to realize that I could see things in a much different way, even at the age of 4, where I noticed I could look through my hand into the next room through the wall and see this incredible activity. This is a shift of consciousness that takes place. And when you, as I put it, detach and attach as the primordial mother, your attention intention is what we call, from ancestral knowing, this simplicity of merging 2 of these center points. And that would result in a lot of ancient cultivational practices. And you'll see it throughout history, where a lot of the alchemists are holding 2 cones that really represent the entry and exit of the toroidal field. And so when you merge those together like Shazam, which also represent the eyeball itself and how it transmutes light out through the eye, and basically you become the creator. You have to activate the alchemical process for that. So when I was a young boy, little to my knowledge, my ability to create and manifest instantaneously through my sight, through my attention, intention, was just second to none. Now, I lost sight of that as I started to grow into limitation from a physical state, because I was such high gamma. One gamma knows another. Real, recognize real. You're a high gamma, my friend. And that ability to absorb information and energy instantaneously can be to our detriment until you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, because it's all encompassing. And so that state turned into realizing that I succumbed to the catalyst or the callous nature of youth. And so at a very young age, about 8 or 9, I was subject to a lot of bullying. I discovered this thing. I picked it up at the age of 10, this little book called The Education of a Bodybuilder by this guy by the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I picked the book up. I started reading. I was like, I'm into it. I'm in it. In 5 minutes, I found the local gym up the upper level of a church. And I walked straight in there, put 45 on each side of a plate of a bar, and started lifting, because I didn't have any sort of reference or guidance from a mentor, just this book. And so at the age of 10, that's quite a substantial weight, to be honest. So I take the bar off, I lift it about 4 or 5 times, and then I'm exhausted. I can't hold it anymore. And it sits on my chest for about 45 minutes until someone came in and relieved me of the weight. And it actually fractured my sternum. That was my first entry into what is the mind capable of. So I took it there wanting to create this physicality, because I was so nurtured and was so sensitive to the emotional state and the true essence of the primordial mother yin. Being around all these women was such an incredible gift, because I would have literally be the extra seat at the table of these incredible radical feminists discussing the world order and how women are going to rise to the top from the very shackles that were societal diminished no returns. So I had to sit around this, and I was nurtured by it. And I had I would say a lot of people would consider me mature, but beyond my years. And so I spent my time doing that. I got invested in bodybuilding. I started powerlifting and bodybuilding, started competing when I was 15. Then I moved into it. I was getting to a very world-like status because I had a goal. At the time, I had an idol by the name of Fred Hatfield, who was the first known guy in history, actually second first in history, to achieve 1,000-pound squat. And so at this point, by the time I was 19, I was squatting about 800 pounds, deadlifting 800 pounds, without the assistance of what in this world order we call PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. And guess what I was using for that? It was called my mind, because I had no limitation to believe that it's not possible, because no one had hindered my belief system. I was nurtured by mentors that were clearly taking steroids, but they never corrupted my mind by going, you need to take steroids. No, they said, you need to eat well, you need to train hard, you need to sleep. Very basics. I understood nutrition very well. I started fasting when I was 10. I've been fasting for 40 years at this point. So this merged me into, by the time I was 19, this voice in my head is saying, hey, guess what? You need to find meditation. Okay, that's weird. I crush things and pick things up, throw them, toss them. But meditation was something foreign in the 80s. Meditation was like Hare Krishnas and yogis, and it was so obscure for the Western culture to absorb this Eastern philosophy or ritual that it was on the fringe. And so I tell my kids, I got 6 kids, I picked up this thing called a newspaper. And they're like, what is that, Dad? What's a newspaper? And I'm like, yeah. And in that was a classified. And then I could find people that are offering services. And I found this guru. She was offering meditation classes. And she basically said, so I turned up to this meditation class in a youth rec center in the middle of a ghetto. I'm just going to be very honest. I was a scared mouse. I was a 300-pound gorilla. But I was like, this is like dead on arrival stuff. I pull up to the parking lot, screaming, dogs barking, ambulances. It was bad. So I went from my car to the rec center. I walk inside. I look around, and there's this 4'0" like little grandmaster with half a dozen misfits. And they were sitting on the ground, this weird position they call the lotus position. I'm like, no way. Not gonna, no, sorry, Bob, not gonna happen. So I merge with it. I sit down like an overgrown gorilla, looking like I'm trying to scratch my ass. My back was in pain. I was hunching over. It was a horrible experience, Michael. I'm telling you. And I'm looking around. I'm hearing these noises, all this stuff. There's no way I can do this thing they call meditation, because from what I can see, everything I know about it, it's got something to do with the mind being still and silent and all this kind of nonsense. I say nonsense because once you embody yourself and realize your attention intention, you can be multifaceted at will, which gets us to the multidimensional state of the very now moment. But that's another story. So I'm sitting there, my back's in pain. I'm attempting to acquire some type of consciousness. This woman stands in the middle of the room, standing. She comes up to here, and I'm sitting, and she goes, "Now, I want you to listen to my voice." And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, listen, lady, this ain't working for me. I'm probably 5 seconds away from leaving. And she goes, "Then everything will fall away." And the second she said that, Michael, this is what happened for 15 minutes with my eyes open, just watch it. And it was dead silence. It was as if I turned the lights off and I had complete imperium over the universe. That sound and time and space was not something that I couldn't access. I am accessing the now moment. And it went on for 15 minutes. I was just amazed. And slowly the sound started to merge back into the room. And I was like, I'm hooked. Whatever this is, I want it. I've picked things up. I've crushed things. I've been empowered with this physicality. This doesn't hold any candle to this superpower. And because I'd nurtured my imagination for so many years as a child that was really fatherless, and I looked for some type of father relationship, and it came in the form of Hollywood, right? So all my daddies were, Richard Gere, Tom Cruise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. This was my idea of merging with that state, because I didn't in any way, shape, or form feel deficient or absent of anything, because I had this nurturing of that primordial mother with my relationship with my mother, and all the feminine energy around me was so empowering. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is it. I'm on the path. And I started looking for teachers. I found a teacher. I studied, went to China. I got ordained in 2 lineages of Taoism. And I know you said abbreviated, but I mean,
Tell us about China. And
right.
And a brief note: fasting for 40 years, you still were eating in there the whole time. So viewership at home, don't take it literally.
Okay. Well, when I say fasting, a Taoist path is basically 1 meal every other day. You want to harness your energy. And when I was bodybuilding, I would eat 1 meal a day, and I would grow. My strongest, I would literally start growing muscle tissue, because the fallacy is this 1 pound per body weight of protein is completely delusional. It's like, I love the head screw that comes with a 1 pound of muscle is heavier than 1 pound of fat. And people look at you, go, yeah, now listen to yourself. Listen, do you understand a pound is a pound is a pound? And they're like, oh my goodness, I've been corrupted and my mind's been commandeered for years. Yes, this is the very deception of the mind, of the psyche, of the manipulated, limited state of what you perceive as your identity, your ego, your personality. It's very finite. It's not infinite, which is when you access intuition, which would be in the infinite state or category. And this is how you have to find it, through that currency. In that same week, I did the meditation. Just to fast forward before we get to the training, I started meditation for the first time. The second day, I took a channeling class and channeled my teacher, Latsu. And that teacher was 60 years in the game, had a stroke, and looked at me like, you son of a bitch. Who are you? You look like some overgrown gorilla. You come in here. I've been teaching this alfalfa sprout eating, I am the next coming of Jesus, virtue signaling stuff for 60 years. And you come in and harness an energy that is beyond this electromagnetism. And it was a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response that still happens to this day as I commune with my teacher on a second-by-second basis. If I choose to embody his spirit and energy and transmit it from my physical body, it is an experience. That's why we call it as such. Furthermore, that day after that, I then was trained in basically psychic abilities, and I read energy instantaneously from my teacher, which was a corrupted individual that was very deficient, unfortunately, because he goes, here's the instruction. This is the sheet of how we do these things. Now read me. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, no. I want you to read me, Mr. Channeler. You know, he was like further inquiry. He was already had a disdain for me because what he had desired through his whole existence was acquired by someone who had no depth of understanding what spirituality was, what religion was, what belief systems were. I was just looking at it at face value, and that's how I received it, which furthermore helped me remember who I was, who I am, and that unity instantaneously. So he gave me the instruction, and he goes, you just give me something, no. Okay, all right. I've got this energy. I guess I'm going to call it that. And because right now, I'm now activated to speak with Lao-Tzu. I hear him I can hear him. I can see him, which was also a diluted state, because this all happened from meditation to channeling to now doing psychic stuff within a matter of 72 hours. And I'm like, I'm on the freight train right now, but I haven't yet concluded whether I'm insane. That will be determined. And so I've got this whole visceral experience where I have dominion over the energy potential of anything, and I feel into it instantaneously. I can see it, and I'm able to commandeer it at will through the connection with Lao-Tzu. So the channeling part seemed like it was a progression, right? So he goes, all right, this is the parameters. This is how you do it. I'm like, okay. So give me a reading on myself. And he's like, give me a reading. I'm like, okay. And basically, this is the next part, Michael, that I took at face value, and I just read off like a menu. He freaked out. But it goes as simple as this. I'm sitting here, he goes, just give me something, anything. See what you can come up with. I'm like, come up with? I don't know. Okay, there's an energy, the spirit, that's telling me that if you keep commandeering the energy of the collective student body that you have been luring in for many decades and feeding it to this entity that takes from their energy as a collective, and you continue doing this, they will take your life within this mortal realm. Whoa, 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 whoa. He freaks out. He goes, whoa, what? And I just ran it off like a menu, right? Because I'm getting the information. I'm not assuming anything. I'm like, what do I know? This is the first time I've done this. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Come with me. Let's go in the other room. I'm like, I'm more interested in, I didn't even really, I wasn't listening. He's like, what did you just say? And I'm like, am I correct? Is this real? And he's like, listen, I'm going to close the door. I want you to hear out what I'm saying first before you determine what is going on here. Well, I don't know what is going on here. I just read some information, but from your reaction, is this correct? Is this real? And he goes, look, I've been working on these things with my girlfriend, and I'm looking to change my path, but I'm addicted to the supernatural powers that this entity gives me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is real. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't listening to the fact that the guy was in equivalent to, if you reference someone like Bob Monroe, it's called the loosh. You are looshing energy from people. This is what this guy was doing. And I was just excited that I actually got it right. And he's like, I'm working on it. I need you to keep this in confidence and not share it. I'm like, man, this energy is very clear. Like, it will take your life if you don't stop this. And he's like, I'm having a real tough time. It's like an addict of any kind. I'm having an issue with it. I'm like, I actually got it right. 6 months later, he was in my arms and he died from brain cancer. That was very, very real. And all of a sudden, the all-knowing channeler, healer, his girlfriend was an exorcist, all this kind of stuff. All this stuff amounted down to, what do I do now? They're coming to me for spiritual advice and asking the three pure ones and Lutzu, which are my teachers, what is the path that how do I come back from this? I'm not ready to surrender the flesh. I'm not ready to surrender the material. And Jade Emperor at the time, which is one of my teachers, he said very clearly, when you accept you know nothing, you know everything. And they're like, what do I do with that? It's like, you have to surrender. There is a sacrifice, and it's not your physical body. It's a sacrifice of obtaining and connecting and being obsessed with the information. Knowledge is not power if it's not applied. And action can only take place from an inaction. And so that didn't happen. He lost his life, and you just go on with business as usual. But by the fourth day, and he seems to be quite happy, quite frankly, you know, anytime I check in with him, he's quite content to just sort of be in the boundaries of earth plane entrapment, which is a cycle within some entities, because they still, for whatever reason, they're under the construct of a learning processes. So they're still absorbing and learning what that transpired within their human biology. And from this, he's sort of in between the state of crossing over. Now, you know, that all has to do with his belief system. There is definitely hierarchical levels of like ascension. And within Taoism, it's a little different, but he's quite content just sort of floating around. It's been quite some time. But furthermore, the fourth day, I witnessed a physical healing. You know, it doesn't get any more. It just keeps continuing to build on itself. So it's like I'm getting the greatest hits inside of a week. So I actually came back from the following day. I was taught how to do distance healing, which sounds so foreign. Even today, most people are like, what exactly does that mean? What is distant healing? Well, you can be anywhere in the world. And if you tune into the frequency and create the resonance of unification, which is the primordial mother, you will reset yourself. You will be whole again. That's what healing is. It's returning to whole as pure frequency. So I had this friend. I came back from that class. I had her call me up on these things we call rotary phones. She goes, look, I can't come and see you today. I'm like, oh, I'm really disappointed. I really want to see you. And she's like, I just blew my ankle out. Oh, no, what happened? Oh, I rolled it. It's the size of a watermelon. I got it like elevated. It's killing me. I'm just not in the mood to hang out. And we'll have to catch up in a week or two because this thing is going to take a while. I'm like, okay. And she's getting off the phone and I go, whoa, wait. I just was taught this technique today. And she's just like, what are you talking about? Well, look, just entertain me for a minute, just for a second. Just go with this, all right? Really, I just want to relax, man. I really want to get off the phone. Give me a few seconds of your time, and then we could take it from there. Just entertain me for a second. She's like, well, you just hurry up. Well, I learned this thing. I'm going to use this technique. And at the end of the bullet points of how you create this, there's a thing called an incantation, and it evokes an energy thing. She's like, okay, whatever it is, can you hurry up? And so I went through the bullet points. I then called the incantation, and it's as simplistic as this. It was like, heal, 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 heal. And then the next outcome I'll abbreviate for you so you don't have to edit it out. She was like, what? And she started screaming through the phone, and she goes, what kind of sorcery are you up to? That's exact. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you talking about? She's like, my ankle shrunk and basically went back to a normal state inside of a second, and I'm standing on it and I don't have any pain. And I'm like, you're full of shit. I kid you not. No. You're full of shit. Come over. I'm like, I will. And so I drive over to her house and I walk through her front door. She runs to me, gives me a hug. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? She was living with her mother. Her mother was like, you know, a whole nother story. There's a different chapter, but basically she's standing on her. I'm like, you look fine to me. And she was a nut for Polaroids. You know how people have cell phones these days, they take photos of everything. She would take a photo of everything as a Polaroid. Very few people know what that is in this day and age, but I'm sure you remember what they were. So she takes a Polaroid, she goes, look at this, and then look at my ankle. And I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. And then the mother's sitting there in the background, and she's a chronic smoker. Her idea of health and good well-being is a bottle of vodka and a pack of cigarettes every day. She was pandered to by her underlings, you know, service people, assistants, because she was quite affluent, had a lot of money. And so she's sitting there on her little throne, always with the distended stomach, feet up on a stool, and she's puffing away. And I'm like, and the next thing out of her mouth, after the daughter showed me that, and I was just in amazement, I was just like, this is unreal. And she just takes a drawer of a cigarette. I always knew you were a healer. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. And I'm like, what exactly are you talking about? I always knew. And I mean, she was into energy, into all these different types of like weird things. And she goes, I want you to come over tomorrow and look at my ankle. You know, I don't do doctors, so you're my doctor now. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. It just gets better and better. I come over the next day. At this point, in a progression of 4 days, I have a spirit that channels through me. I speak to at an at-will basis. I hear him. I see him. I have experienced clairvoyance, mastery inside of a second. I can now see things. Things are now turned on. Imagine a computer screen that has 1,000 icons on it. That's what I was experiencing, because that level of saturation was presenting itself through the cone. Now, this is the ancient path where you start to realize this through a lot of indigenous practices. Through that cone merges the two cones that creates the toroidal field, which we call the Taurus field, which means celestial heat within Taoism. This activates the internal energetics within the physical body from Lao-Tzu's supercharged through my whole body. I literally had the equivalent to the most incredible Kundalini experience, times that by 1,000, all being realized instantaneously. So these things just keep turning on. So wherever I look, information is there. So I read it off like a menu. I don't get involved with the semantics of, well, I want you to validate. Can you feel this? Can you see this? I stepped away from the need to be approved almost instantaneously. And most people that get involved with healing, it takes them quite a few years to massage their ego to start to understand that it's not about you. It never was. But the unification state is a frequential state that you hold that resonance. Just so happens your cultivational practice, it becomes revealed. So I get over there and she goes, take a look at my foot. She can't see it. I assume that she couldn't see her feet, hadn't seen it in years. So I get down there and I'm at the stool and she's up there puffing away. She goes, take a look. It's been hurting me for a while. I pulled the sock off and I almost died, Michael. I was like, it was a gangrenous foot. And I had a headache. I had a mass. I was freaking out. And then I've got Lao-Tzu in the background. Okay. And I'm like, okay, what? I mean, my internal instinct is get this woman in a car to a hospital now. This is off my pay grade, as my dear, beautiful sister Julie would say, it's above my pay grade. It's above my pay grade. And he goes, no. I'm like, what do you mean? You're going to witness a healing today. What else? What other things could transpire? Why not? And I watched that foot go from gangrenous green to, which was black, to pink in color within 40 minutes. 40 minutes. And I'm just like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And she's like, yeah, it feels better. See, I told you you're an energy healer. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. Now, the thing that I found really interesting was she was surrounded by panderers that would just do whatever she said because she would give them money. So none of them ever assisted her in anything to do with wellness. And she would continue to trash this offering of material, the flesh, with alcohol, cigarettes, and whatnot. That was just the instinct of her reality. And she would use, for example, myself now being so somewhat fast forwarded into a mastery of this state to now be the go-to for her any health or wellness stuff. And it's very easy to do as a guru to hand this transmission and see results. From that, it transpired into, I got obsessed with sebaceous cysts. So I would love to raise them up from the skin and then watch them explode like an oil rig, which was a lot of fun because it would happen super fast. So, if I had to recall one event, it was this woman had a huge soccer ball cyst on her breast because she was breastfeeding. And so when she was breastfeeding, she got a clogged duct or something of that nature. It was super red. And her and I witnessed this. As the resonance came in, the skin opened up, about a liter of pus poured out of her chest and then sealed back up in front of our very eyes. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. This is the wildest stuff I've ever seen. When I witness these things, it's all got to do with resonance. It has nothing to do with, I'm calling in my guides, I'm getting a healing, you cannot be a place, person, or thing. And so a lot of the times I get people coming to me that have assistance or need, their loved ones are in a dire straits of a coma, or they're on their deathbed, and in most cases, I would say most of the time, the second I check in with the three pure ones, they're like, no, we can alter that frequency. And people are like, wow, this is why I'm kind of like Harvey Keitel from like Pulp Fiction. I'm the cleaner. I come in and help things get but when you look at it from a peer perspective, like one of my dear friends, Tom Campbell, who's a OBE, and he actually was formerly working within the Monroe Institute and has been a teacher of this experience of astral projection for 60 years. We attribute it to the probability. Now, he uses his theory called largest consciousness system that would be equivalent to what I refer to as a primordial mother. And when you put your attention intention, you will alter light to wave to matter to particle realized and form a result. And the probability of it moving in the direction of the desire of that individual starts to become more tangible. And the more attention intention, the more you bring the resonance, it becomes realized. And so for me to see, I mean, if I had $1 for how many things that I've seen over the last 30 years, I'd be a very rich man, because it's an instantaneous thing. This is not something that conjures up over time, or you have to, all of that is the finite mind. All of that is a manipulation. It's psyche. When you embody the now moment, you are not in the way of that creation. It's the resonance. You possess it. You are the tuning fork. And you cultivate that through Taoist alchemy to be able to hold that resonance, and it reveals itself. If you create it in the construction where there's a separation and you identify yourself, and this, furthermore, a lot of people go, well, you're a Taoist priest. You're identifying as yourself. I had to make sense. When I was activated, I was led towards Taoism from my teachers, and remembered who I was 1,000 lives before this as an alchemist, as a so-called healer, as a wisdom teacher, a reincarnation of immortalized state. And this is just bringing it full force. So through that, we call the Sherlock to our Watson of elementary. And so that search and discovery is important for anyone. And that's why I refer back to a Taoist seeker to a knower, removes the state of the mind as separate, and the psyche and the identity and thought in of itself dissolves that. Because if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling. And that feeling will become more representative of that state of awareness. As you ascend higher, you develop these skills, and it becomes a a detachment to reattach, a point of no return, as we put it within Taoism, where we're able to now be the present moment and you have imperium over that. That means that your attention intention will create instantaneously. There is no delay. Many people talk about, oh, well, once you move past the low frequential state of this material, this dimension, this realm, as you ascend higher, your ability to access things instantaneously are present. Well, I tell you with a knowing through the alchemical process that by being taught that, which would be on the lens of a physicist, a multidimensional state, that you are present in all states at once. And from a Taoist, it's all frequencies at once. And when you exhibit this high ascended frequency, what we call the primordial mother, the unified state, it will not be tampered with or overshadowed by the finite mind. It's impossible. You will see the evidence because you are no place, no person, no thing, first person, third person, no person, and it will present itself with the nature of the servitude, the selflessness. And then you will witness what true unconditional love is as you're an embodiment of that. And that will show itself in your path. Whenever you find a state of servitude, you are not thinking about it. There's a person in need. We must help them return to whole. You share yourself. And this is where we return to the Taoist past of a gift. Your gift is your offering. And so my searching after I had this whirlwind of a week, and then it ended with another 5 days of what most people will call a dark night of the soul, where I literally had every thought, every feeling, every emotion at once. And by the third day, mortality or ending the story right there physically was an option that I was considering because it was so incredibly overwhelming. I couldn't make sense of it, and at the time I couldn't contact my teacher because rotary phones were not cell phones, and people are never around when they need to be. And I went through it to a point where it would evoke within me this visceral response to anything that was not of this pure nature of the return of the primordial mother. So I would go into a movie theater and I'm just like, I just can't sit still. I'm just absolutely feeling all the pain, all the suffering, all the madness, all the psyche, all of this at once happening within this container. And so I'd go into a movie theater and something as benign as a virile man that has testosterone running through their veins, and they see a naked woman walk across the screen, it made me throw up. I threw up on the person in front of me. It was so physical. And so when I look back at it, and as my teachers teach me, and at the end of it, that was it. Now, from the teaching that I share, the wisdom teaching through my teachers, there's normally 9 cycles of this awareness through your physical timeline, that you'll have 9 cycles of these unraveling and embodiments of ascended level. I kind of fast forwarded it and I got it all within a week, which I feel really grateful for. And that's good because I don't think I could, I'm not going back to that one. There is a point of no return. And a lot of people can also embody a dark night of the soul that goes on for years. That's a choice. That's things that they're experiencing, and that's their story. And the most important thing is there is nothing wrong with that. Their story is their story. Their truth is their truth. And the second you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own, because we are the same. We are the mirroring effect of that. And we will transmute it. It will be evoked into this present moment, that whatever frequentially is absent from that state, you will see it in others, which is part of the very simplistic understanding of this unified now moment. So whenever something repels you, you're just looking at yourself. It's so simplistic in its nature, but it results back to the yin and yang. So the yin and yang is the very decipherer for a Taoist to reveal the reality, the nature of reality, and you will find it within that. So as we continue our path, we identify reality quite simplistically, that it is a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You are all things and nothing at the same time. And that's where I get students like, Jifu, how is that possible? Well, let's regress back to the breath. It is autonomous. It is an autonomic response of what we would call the unconscious mind. And without effort, you are there. Without your participation, which is the very corrupter of that state, you are presented with the unified state of knowing. Breath is yin and yang. And in the center of that is the real secret. The gooey, ooey center is what we call the Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother. And you access it through the breath. As you inhale, you hold. And when you hold, you condense what we call the condensing of the diamond of perfection. And it creates the hardness that then reveals itself in a visceral, energetic potential, which is the currency they work in this material. So that will present itself in the physicality, and it will accumulate as what we call the absorbing of the riches. So when you activate your energy potential, your ability to harness this is now. And it all comes from that alchemical process. And your mastery becomes more and more revealed as you harness that. You remember who you are. And there's always an ascended process. Within Taoism, we look at it as the physical body, the energetic body, the spiritual body, the sun body, the moon body, the earth body, the oneness body, the ultimate body, and then being with all things. The highest state of knowing is access to direct source information that shows itself. And so even going through that in a new age spiritual shift, most people go through that and go, I am the master. No, when I went through that, I had to make sense of it. And Lao-Tzu led me towards my own nature of cultivation by pursuing being ordained as a priest in 2 lineages of Taoism. That was the exciting factor and the necessity for me. Now, am I limited by that? No, these are fundamental building blocks. It's a template for people to self-realize the very state they're in. What alchemy, Taoist alchemy, is the most powerful tool for you to remember who you are and have access to that and a repeatability that can be shown to you in a second-by-second basis. And it's not a transitory, fleeting moment of delusion where many people get trapped in between states of awareness because they can't get it past what they believe is the very limited mind of the ego or personality. And you get a taste of this energy potential, which we call the currency, but it can't be repeatable because they're not aware of the activational process. And so a lot of people will diminish and go, hey, look, just you're now. That's all you need to be. And I say to them, and I invite a very healthy conversation about that as being very all-empowering and simplistic. It returns to that very state of the Jade Emperor, which he said, when you accept you know nothing, you know everything. And within Taoism, we always return to, if you have to learn it, you do not know it. If you know it, you do not have to learn it. And that is the visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response that validates all things. And it is never, ever wrong. But you must attune. You must regulate. And so the distortion, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk Martin would say, is the dukkha, the mental, emotional state, and the idea that it's all separated. And furthermore, as you identify, this is the misdirection. The more you identify with trauma, the more you identify with a state of mind, it is nothing more than that. And it traps you in your mind prison. And your ability to access unification is limited because you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And that will only be revealed from the mastery that you have to acquire, and that becomes your self-realization. So an absolute truth is your truth. And anyone else that gives you an absolute truth, about face and run in the other direction. That's their absolute truth. It can only be validated through your experience. You're the experiencer, the creator. And so when you embody anger, when you embody depression, when you embody fear, you're experiencing it. That's a mastery. Only the difference is you're still in the limited state of ego, the limited state of personality, the limited state of the mind as separate. But the crumbs that bring you to this unified state is the alchemical process. Once you switch that on and you burn that architecture in, because it's as tangible as it is the physical flesh, you can have imperium over that at will. And you can show others, you can show yourself. Furthermore, redefining this truth for the seeker to the knower from the experiential moment. And so when you do all these things, you start to realize that methods are so powerful because it makes sense to what it is that you're experiencing, rather than this question that you keep going, who am I? What is my purpose? Now, my teacher, Lao Tzu, will always return with, well, why am I here? And that's a fundamental question that most people ask. And his answer will be, why not? And then they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Experience is all things. From a Taoist seeker perspective, the ultimate embodiment of the primordial mother, which when we understand things, when we look at the yin and yang, it's nothing more than yin and yang. That is the decipherer. Furthermore, what is yin? What is yang? What is light? What is dark? Dark is nothing more than the absorption of all colors, which is yin. Light is nothing more than the expansion and transmission and admission of all colors. And when you merge the two together, you find that center point. And that is what we would call the Wu Ji. Furthermore, through further inquiry, some people would call it the Vesika. The Vesika point. This is within everything. Every energy potential has their center point of realization. There are no exceptions. This would be the only state that you need to be aware of through your co-creation, is that realization, because then you return home. Because if you have a state of trauma, emotional state, mental state, physical state, the second you ask the fundamental question, who am I? Your energy is restored. So when we ask ourselves, because you can't process it, who am I? There's nothing there. There's nothing to go over. So we refer to it within Taoism as, imagine a table and you roll out this beautiful cloth, which is the primordial mother, perfection. And you cut up it into 1,000 pieces. Each piece is separate but unified. And what your goal is as a seeker is to find that center point and realize that even when you cut up a piece, from Taoism, we call it from the 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 9,000 things, all returns back to the oneness. All rivers return back to the ocean. That your attention intention is commandeered to the one piece. Even though you are all those pieces, you are now focusing attention intention, draining from your life force, which then transmutes into this state of mental, emotional, physical, diminished return. Whereas when you understand and you return, you detach and attach as the primordial mother, there is no limitation, because you never source from this Jing, what we call Jing within Taoism, which is the physical flesh. That is nothing more than an anchor, and you immortalize these 50 trillion cells so that you nourish it. There is no end. The nourishing effect of that is you have abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite amount of energy, because this is the currency that we operate in. This currency is revealed to you, and your attention intention will determine what is created or what is destroyed within this state, because you are the Imperium. You are the primordial mother. So your participation is not necessary. When you participate with your mind, with your very limited mind, you manipulate, you distort, you contort, you make it very limited what your experience is, and it will show itself. And for all healers that end up on my doorstep, they're like, oh, I'm a light worker, I'm a massage therapist, I'm a psychologist, I'm a this, I'm a that. And I always ask you, how do you feel at the end of the day? And their answer is always the same: I'm exhausted. Well, this is the very evidence that you need to start your path Watson, on your self-realization through your Sherlock manifestation of knowing and returning to who you are, because that return state is something that you don't have to do anything with. It's now. You don't have to manipulate anything. And that's furthermore how it reveals itself. The less you take the very limited mind, the personality, the ego, and you realize that your ability to access unification is now, it will not be corrupted. It will not be limited by this version or identity, which is the very limitation. And most people, so whenever I have a dialogue with my teachers to access information, new spiritual world order version of my source of the primordial mother would be Akashic records, halls of Amente, however you want to perceive it, whatever you're being given as information to shape and access that and return it so that you can see it. It has to be verifiable. It has to be repeatable, or it is a diluted state. Your creativity is present now. Now, the reason that it may not be obtained by you instantaneously through further inquiry will show you that it's because you are separating yourself and you are diminishing the potential because you are accepting it as limited, which it is not. That's the very fine line between the mind and the conscious awareness of unification.
That brings us to one eternal question. We're going to get one question in on this show. If I do a Joshu quote first, how they always structure it as a student coming running up to the master to show that they sort of graduated from the program. They're ready to hang out a shingle and be the next healer or teacher out there. A student comes running up to a master, again, Joshu, and says, "What about it when I seek to be Buddha?" And the teacher says, "What a tremendous waste of energy." And the student's not the type to quit and is pretty quick and comes back with another retort. "Well, what about it when I don't waste energy?" And the teacher says, "In that case, you are Buddha." And so I want to get to the topic of thinking versus awareness, which I think you've already been covering this entire time. The difference between this flow and this flow, but maybe in a more societal, practical, day-to-day terms. I'll give 5 little quotes over the last 10 years from different unconditional love figures. What's the difference between thinking and awareness? Stuck versus unstuck. An angel named Charlotte said that. What's the difference between thinking and awareness? Dull Knife, Native American chief, said thinking takes energy. Awareness is knowing and acknowledging. Red Shirt said thinking brings in doubts. Awareness is what is. Awareness is observing what is already in place. And what is the difference again? Heather, another angel, said limiting versus limitless, time versus timelessness. And Charlotte also said knowing versus unknowing, or it's the other way around, knowing and unknowing. I got it. After everything you just said, unknowing and knowing. And I've never actually read that or realized that it's been on the page for 10 years or something. Conditional love versus unconditional love. Survival versus growth. Inner versus outer. So this must be outer, this must be inner. Learned versus knowing. And that's Joy and Angel. And I have one last one. To think is of ego and awareness is divine. Archangel Gabriel, awareness is what you yearn for. Thinking is what you do all the time. That's for humans. So with that, that was a long intro to a question. What is the difference between thinking and awareness, and how can a person just take a breath, slow down, even slow their roll for 5% more each day?
Well, I mean, it's very evident. I probably mentioned that if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And this is very simplistic, but it creates the paradox of what is yin and yang. And furthermore, that polarizing effect shows itself in everything. And so it doesn't matter where you are, you can take a moment. And the most fundamental power is when you pause, you identify the bellows, you realize there's a center point, and you can access that through the autonomic nervous system, the autonomous state of breath. That is the now moment. You are the mother. You are not thinking. You are just there. Now, furthermore, you will see visceral kinesthetic somatic response through your alchemical process. But if you are to breathe in, hold, and then breathe out, you will start to accumulate what we call absorbing the riches. So that will present itself within the cells, within the physical flesh. You'll start to see an accumulation. Furthermore, most people that cannot create, it's not because they're not creators. We're all creators. But from a fundamental energy perspective, their imagination has been limited or corrupted. And we have to go back to the alchemical process. And within Taoism, there's 5 elements that you must be able to equalize and regulate, which is fire, water, earth, metal, and wind. And so when you look at these things, you have to be able to shape them. And when I look at someone's aura, I can see instantly what you're excessive or deficient in, looking at their dantians. It's if I had to describe it, it's basically looking at a computer screen. I can see the emperor's new clothes and look into each dantian. It gives me your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state in about a second. And from that is a snapshot. So always remember this. This can be changed and altered at will. It's not limited to, but it will reveal itself, things that are more stagnated because they'll be in excessive, or even as simple as deficient. And so when we look at the dantians, we call them the dantians. Some people call them chakras. They're called the energy elixir, the field of energy within the physical body. That alchemical process has to be activated for you to get the most incredible experience as an alchemical seeker within the internal alchemy, which then you can transmute it at will as you cultivate. Because what happens is, Michael, what I've noticed over 30 years is people are like, because I could give people transmissions. Most recently, I had someone at my temple and I gave them a transmission which I always give warning to, is a 72-hour sort of process of regulation. And it happens at a subatomic level. They spin off like a spinning top, and they have a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual transformation. Now you are off to the races, or are you? Because what happens is, do you have the ability, and that's why Taoist alchemy is so powerful, you fortify it. You fortify it. You must be able to hold it, or it's transitory. You'll experience it, and it will show you the evidence of it. But if you can't hold that resonance, and that resonance will reveal itself within your mental, emotional state. So you will identify with the very limited mind, the ego, the personality, and you'll realize that, okay, these are things that need to be nurtured. Because when people tell me they cannot create or see things, because that is instantaneous, imagination is the portal to direct source information, it's because of the excess of deficiency. And the second I show people a cultivational practice, all of a sudden they're like, I can see things vividly. The images are so dense, they're so real, I can reach out and touch them with my eyes open or closed. This is a mastered state. But most people in the New Age spiritual path, I got that. I know that. Yeah. And it's contemplation and it's conceptual. And until you can repeat it and materialize it in this state, this frequency, it means nothing. But many people are more, they absorb knowledge, they don't absorb experience or knowing until they have the experience themselves. So that's the difference between thinking and knowing through this path.
Beautiful. What else do you want to share?
It's always a contemplation for anyone to find themselves, and that there is no exception to the rule. I'll repeat this one more time. The rule only exists within the limited, finite mind. When you accept that you're all things and nothing, when you reveal the true nature, which is the now moment, through the breath, you are autonomic, you are autonomous, you are the now moment. It is operating regardless. That is the unification of all things. When that is revealed, and you'll feel it through the experience, you can obtain anything and everything at will. And your will and your desire will alter with your ascension. Because the more and more you return, and furthermore, this is an incantation that I use from the Jade Emperor. And it's as simple as this: a power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift, that is your offering. That is your gift, that is your offering. That is your gift, that is your offering. And that visceral feeling that Michael and I are experiencing, and any audience that lays their eyes upon this digital offering of perfection from the frequencies that Michael holds, the frequencies that I hold, show you said evidence of this visceral experience. And that is where we embody this is, and you imbue this state, you imbue those words. They are not just words, they are evidence of that state of unification. And it forms itself, it evokes that awareness, and you return back to your knowing. And so anyone listening to this or experiencing this or witnessing this can instantly remember who they are. And furthermore, if we watered it down to a neurological state of awareness, maybe some new age neuroscience, there is this thing we call mirror neurons that you exhibit and you obtain through your own physical body. And from the self receptors on the dermal layer of your skin, my dear beloved icon, the Keebler known, Bruce Lipton, would always speak on the state of awareness. And from a Taoist, we take the three treasures, pineal, pituitary, and thalamus. We use those as the cultivational alchemical fun factory. With your attention intention, taking from those self-receptors, you use the culture medium, which is the blood, to shuttle your attention intention with this alchemical process and activate and turn on and off your gene expression at will. That comes from the imperium of the 50 trillion cells, accessing the potential of 0.07 millivolts of electricity. And so listening to this, realize that you're entering into a state of knowing and returning to who you are. And from that, your mirror neurons, as simplistic as it is, will show you evidence of that. Human history will give you an example. If you're not familiar with what I'm saying and you're just feeling the visceral effects, the 4-minute mile was evidence of this, where in societal norms, we are limited by our physical bodies. And at the point in history when that was obtained, there was no evidence that it was possible for a human being to obtain a distance of a mile within 4 minutes. And the second that was obtained, the mirroring effect, which is what we call the mirror neuron effect, ripples through the unified field, and it accesses that remembrance and that knowing of all that experience it. And then it gives them their permission slip to erase their identity, their limited mind, return to their knowing, and apply it and receive it themselves. And that's what happens when we experience the now moment, that you all have the ability to return to who you are. And that diamond that of perfection is that very monologue that is realized through the dialogue, as Michael and myself have this dialogue with our teachers, the wisdom teaching that we share, is the very monologue that you're looking for, which is the source, the unification, the Tao, God, Buddha, the oneness. Amen to that, my dear friends.
I love it. How about we give everybody a permission slip to see light? It's seeing without seeing, the Zen thing. Your heart already is there, knows what to do. But I don't know what everybody's thinking. I don't have ESPN. I would just like to say, though, if you're game, I'm just going to put my fingers up like it's that movie Celestine Prophecy, 2 New York City elevators. You'll see a filament of light between my fingers, or as chakras. You're already seeing it, and you had another word for it. But you can ask the universe, angels, guides, or just ask for extra, like it's Christmas, and get some extra light and more patterns, shapes, butterflies, what have you. It'll be whatever you'll allow it to be. Have fun with it. Call it interdimensional, multidimensional channeling, or anything else you want to call it. Slap a label on it if you wish, but just be and breathe and do. And you get a dad joke, most importantly. It's got to be a new one. So it'll be Bert and Ernie Sesame Street. I'm not going to do a holiday one. I gave them all my holiday ones before we started the show. Bert and Ernie Sesame Street. Bert offers Ernie ice cream. What's Ernie say? He says, "Sure, Bert." And just catch a little filament of light or a big filament of light. Doesn't have to be any which way. What are you seeing going on between my fingers, son?
Energy potential, my friend.
Okay. And if you don't mind asking for more or switching it over to broader, but don't blame me, angels, don't blame Canada. Just ask for extra and have somebody bring in extra light or a shape, butterfly, or a form, geometric. I don't know. I'm losing all my English. What are you getting for extra?
The repelling effect of the polarizing, dualistic now moment, and playing with that magnetism and that electric charge gives you that repelling polarization, which furthermore is shown in experience as you run through the different colors.
So you got some colors. I'm going to translate there. You got some colors.
I'm kind of cheating because I see colors everywhere. So I don't have to attempt to create. What you're transmitting is very palpable and it's very visual.
But it's not palpable fiction either.
Yes, it's not. That's a good one. I like
Mr.
that.
Wolf is on the show, so I had to make sure, or the cleaner. Okay, with that, can you do one minor, although there's no such thing, one minor goodwill to mankind, high vibe, transmission frequency, something. I'm going to light sage to buy you time, and you can catch it. You've already caught it before, whether it's energy or whatever, but this is something I try to do on every show. I've forgotten a few times. And then there's always some serious folks that do a really good job on the show, but we're not going to blow sage. I'd like to blow sage. Do I have permission to blow sage?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I
Free
mean,
will is most important, so you asked for it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm lighting a little bit of sage. It's California sage, Juniper Ridge, I think, that California company, as everything slides in the shell. Crate and barrel tea light in there to protect a rainbow shell. I think they call it abalone. Can never pronounce anything. Welcome to words. Here's sage, but why settle for sage? Not that it's ho-hum, when you can have sage, flowers, and ocean, and even more than that. What will you allow for? I think that's the rub for all of us. And maybe, San, you can close us out in a second with allowing for more daily and how people can reach out to you and stuff like that to do exactly that. Are you getting a little bit of sage? Are you getting energy? Are you getting cinnamon in the air or something holiday? What are you catching through two screens? I'm in Texas. You're in Nevada. This is impossible. But as Audrey Hepburn said, that whole I am possible thing is all you've been talking about today.
Well, that's the wind, right?
And changing the desert direction of the desert wind is what this is all about.
I mean, just as you move that energy in, even if we ask the audience to raise their hands like this and just hold it there, and we move wind through our fingers, and furthermore, anyone witnessing this will experience that very state. And so, with that closing out, where to find the very wisdom teachings of SAN QING. Furthermore, through the social web, the interweb, social sphere, you can discover the hidden nuggets that I am just a ambassador for, a catalyst, a conduit to share the wisdom teachings of my teachers. Furthermore, I commune with my teacher Lao-Tzu on a second by second basis, and it will show itself. The last thing I did was transcribe the Tao Te Ching with Lao-Tzu. That's a 200-page offering of 81 incantations that are imbued with the very frequency and lineage of our teachers. And so it will present itself as a living scripture. So when you set your eyes on it, it will raise from the page, swirl around you, and enter your heart, furthermore activating what we call the magical register. So you can find this stuff through the interweb, through the Way 126, or Instagram, YouTube, on all podcast platforms. I think we're verging in on close to 300 or 400 published podcasts. And we're, I don't know, people call that a record. I don't know. I've only been doing it a year, but I guess it is something. And furthermore, I have another probably 40 or 60 in the bag. And we continue the journey to awaken people like yourself, sharing wisdom teachings so that people remember who they are.
I love it. SAN QING coming to us from Nevada. Website is www.theway126.com. The details will be under the video. And I'd like to add for everybody something Angel said, I think it's like 10 years ago. And you want a but to come up. When you hear this, you want to say but, because then that's the next area you can allow a little bit more room, love, space on. But you can be happy now in this very moment for no reason whatsoever, without a single reason. And that was the deep thought from this end for today. SAN QING, you're amazing. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. We'll have you back on again soon. And really enjoyed having you here.
I'm really grateful for you. I'm grateful for everything you share with the community, with the world. You are a precious being of light. And I will forever be in love with you and everything that you transmit, my beautiful brother.
Oh, thank you very much. Till next time. And thank you again, Sean. SAN. I'm saying Sean. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. And have a wonderful 2025. Thank you again, SAN.
See you on the other side, guys.